Hello everyone. Thank you again for listening and joining us. We're going to see what happened to the Russian bases and naval bases in Syria after the fall of Basar Al-Assad. You know, Russia made a mistake when it invaded Ukraine in 2022 because this mistake has caused it to lose its ally, especially in the Middle East. Or Russia is no longer capable of doing other things. Is no longer capable of helping its allies, especially like the fall of Bashar al-Assad and other allies who are in difficulties like Iran and so forth. In 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, but before that, the Americans were warning Ukrainians that the Russians were preparing an invasion, but the Ukrainians didn't believe what the Americans were telling them. So they kept refusing what the intelligence of the Americans were telling them, that the Russian invasion is imminent. So they didn't take that seriously. So on February 24th, 2022, the Russians invaded. They invaded in an idea saying that they are going to take the whole of Ukraine in 3 days. There were some Western medias who had access in Ukraine who were interviewing the young Ukrainians in the streets. They were asking them what they think of that Russian propaganda, or that Russian statement that they are going to take Ukraine in 3 days. These young Ukrainians were saying these people might be crazy because that is something that they can't achieve. You can't take Ukraine in 3 days because our military is very strong. So Russians invaded Ukraine from the east, north, even from the south, from the Black Sea. So they did everything they could to get Ukraine. They even passed by Belarus because they had drills with the Belarusian army. With those drills, they were like lying to the people in the West that they are doing exercises with the Lukashenko army, but in reality, that was a way of getting in Ukraine. So after that, because the Russians got too occupied and had 2 years of fighting in Ukraine and they didn't achieve their goal of denazification and then capturing the whole Ukraine, and still a puppet who would respect Moscow's demands in Ukraine. Then in Syria, they did like an alliance, and that alliance they went after Basar al-Assad. Basar al-Assad then fell. So after falling, these bases of the Russian army, which were in Syria, then they didn't belong to the Russians again. So here's what happened. The Syrian leadership, which included the HTS-led government, terminated the contract or the release which they had, which the Assad regime signed in 2017. That this release would be for 49 years. So it means they would stay in Syria from 2017 to for 49 years. So this government, which came with the HTS, terminated that contract. Here the summary of what happened. Russians evacuated, or they withdrew from those bases. The new Syrian government demanded the withdrawal of Russian forces from the base. Satellite imagery from late 2024 and early 2025 confirmed that the Russian Navy began withdrawing ships and military equipment. There were some initial standoff for a period. Russian transport ships and naval vessels were reportedly denied entry to the port to retrieve equipment and personnel. So you mean the personnel who were working for the Russian army in Syria, forcing them to wait off the coast of where they were stationed. Eventually, some were granted permission to dock and begin the evacuation process. they lost some key assets. The loss of Tartus base is a major strategic blow to Russia. The facility was the only Russian naval outside the Soviet Union and served as a crucial hub for projecting naval power in the Mediterranean Ocean, as well as supporting the Russian military and commercial activities in the Middle East and Africa. There were some negotiation for the future. The Russian military presence has largely been withdrawn from Tartus. Moscow has reportedly been in discussions with the new Syrian authorities to secure the future of its military assets in the country. The final status of the base has led to speculation about other regional powers potentially seeking to negotiation a lease. Because Russia was too occupied in Ukraine, it could not help its friend Basar Al-Assad in Syria. And Hamas also invaded Israel. They attacked Israel on October 7, 2023. They killed 1,200 civilians. Majority of these people were civilians, and took 240 captives or hostages. So Israel went after Hamas. So Hezbollah, when Israel went after Hamas in order to capture the hostages to return them home, Hezbollah also wanted to intervene. Then Israel went after Hezbollah too. So when Israel went after Hezbollah, so Basar Al-Assad became weaker because all the allies and the support he was getting from these rebels or these groups that support were not longer there. So that's how these rebellions who were against him, they united, and then they did a rebellion, and then he faced this rebellion, and that way he fell. And that is how Russia lost these bases. They were very crucial for the Mediterranean Sea, and even projecting power in Africa, even in the Middle East for Russia. So thank you everyone for watching. Have a wonderful time. Stay tuned and subscribe and share. Thank you everyone.